Shalom. First and foremost, give all praise to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh, Shai, Barakatam. Giving sincere greeting to all the brothers and sisters scattered across the four corners, teaching this word with sincerity and charity. I am Brother Phineas, with Prince of Power Israelites, here to bring you another short lesson, very short lesson. I want to deal with love for your brethren. Love has multiple levels. I think really, as Israelites, we're just scratching the surface on love, and that's one of our issues that we having with moving this thing forward, with actually beginning to start to come together, and not just gathering together, but putting resources together so we can begin building a community. Building a community first before we can even talk about a nation. Building a block, getting a neighborhood first before we can actually build an actual nation. And we trying to skip steps, and we haven't really delved into love. We just scratching the surface with love. And so when you ask Israelite, when you ask one of us and you say, well, what is love? What does it mean to love thy brother as thyself? And what does it mean to love thy neighbor? They're going to usually, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go to Leviticus 19:17. So let's go to there. Let's go there and check this out. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh. Alright, so you don't hate your brother, you don't suffer sin upon him. And that's usually our level. That's usually as far as we go when we deal with loving thy brother, is more so making sure that we rebuking our brother, making sure we reproving and correcting our brother, to make sure that they stay on that straight and narrow. And in that, there's a level of suffering dealing with that. There is a minor level of suffering dealing with that, because when you try to tell somebody, when you try to tell your brother, hey man, you need to put the weed down. You need to, you need to slow down on the Henny. You need to slow down on it. Or you try to tell a woman she gotta wear a dress, that she need to dress modest, or she's dressing ill modest. When you try to tell a woman those things, or you try to correct your brother, a lot of times it's gonna come with some bite back. They don't just take that to the head. Like, a lot of people don't have a chin. Even in Israel, a lot of us don't have a chin for rebuke and correction. And so those who are offering that, those who are doing that, there's a level of suffering that goes out with that. A lot of camps who do a lot of rebuking and a lot of reproofing, those are the main camps that you see people doing videos on, saying, well, this man, they just wicked, they hateful, they just bitter, and they don't do that, and they just doing this, and they, a lot of times, brothers had got reproved or corrected and didn't like the reproof and correction and left. And really didn't have a good reason for leaving, and so they make videos up every time they can about that particular organization. And so now that organization has to suffer a little bit, has to suffer because, they tried to give that reproof and that correction and not suffer that brother into sin. And I ain't saying it's the case at all times, there's exemptions to everything. So I don't want y'all to take this on the chin. Anybody who's been hurt, or anybody, a hit dog gonna holler. You know what I'm saying? You wanna come at me. I'm willing to suffer for it, because I love you enough to suffer for it. But still, that's the basic level. That's the basic level of love. All right, if that's all we dealing with is the reproof and correction, we're not even doing a lot of that. We're not even doing a lot of that. I'm seeing brothers with the bald heads. Come on, man. Them heads are looking pretty. They looking pretty clean, man. They shining on the videos, man. We done got comfortable wearing the ZZs now. We done got comfortable with the ZZs. I know I used to bang on the ZZs. Anybody put up with the camp with the ZZs on me, like, man, what are you doing, man? Nobody's really bringing these corrections. And eventually we're gonna be right back into the church, because our swag is still in the world. But nobody want to make these corrections. Nobody want to give this reproof and this correction, because there is a form of suffering in it. Don't get me wrong, but that's still base level. Base level. Now let me show you the opposite end of the spectrum. All right, that's the base level. Let me show you the opposite end. Let me show you the supreme level. Let's go to John 15 verse 13. John chapter 15 and verse 12. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. It says, greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. The base level is the Leviticus 19:17. That's your beginner. That's your beginner pack to love. Okay? That's your beginner pack to love. Alright? Now, and this is loving thy brother. Right? It's not dealing with, you know what I'm saying, I know the John 14:15, you know what I'm saying, loving God's keeping these commandments. But this is really what we talking about, is dealing with your brother. Loving your brother, loving each other. Base level, Leviticus 19:17. Opposite end spectrum, John 15:12 through 13. No greater love. There's no greater love than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Let's precept that, because it's a heavy thing. Let's precept it with 1 John chapter 3 and verse 16. Watch this. 1 John chapter 3 verse 16. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. This is how we perceive love, because God has laid down his life for us. We ought to also lay down our lives for the brethren. No greater love is a man that lays down his life for his friends. So you have one opposite, you have one end of the spectrum, you have the other end. Like, where? So we can't just stay here. We can't stay on this level. And see, love is suffering for your brothers. Love is suffering for the brethren. We can't only be down here. And so that's where the alms comes in. That's where the good works comes in, right? So let me give you this example. When we first started up, there was brothers, you know what I'm saying, that was brothers where we needed certain things. We needed posters, camera, uniforms, you know what I'm saying, and only so many brothers had jobs. You know, some brothers don't be having jobs, and certain brothers be in situations, and so there was only a few brothers that were suffering, that were holding this thing together, and then the other brothers were just kind of floating around. And then you eventually you have brothers looking at brothers like, hey man, especially when you first starting up, like and that's why a lot of people like going to big crowds. That's why they like headed to big congregations, so they can hide. Ain't nothing really much required of them. They just go in there and sit down somewhere, and nobody knows them, because it's already been established. It's already together, and ain't nobody really putting no pressure on nobody to do anything they really don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? So they don't really get that pressure on them, so they like the large congregations. No matter if they disagree with the doctrine or whatever, it's still somewhere they can just sit down. A lot of people like to go hide. A lot of people want to keep the law and hide. But when you first coming together, a small group, things got to get paid for. It's a form of suffering. When you looking at brothers, it's only 4, 5 of y'all, and it's only 2 brothers paying for everything, or it's 8 of y'all, and it's only 4 brothers or 3 brothers paying for everything, feeding everybody, picking everybody up. Form of suffering comes in with that. But you actually need that. See, we skipping that process. A lot of us are skipping that process. You need that process to continue on, because the more people that come, the more suffering you're gonna have to take on. So you can't skip that part of the wilderness. You can't skip that part. You can't skip that part of love, because you gotta learn how to love. You gotta learn how to suffer. You gotta build a callus. You gotta build a chin for suffering. You just can't go out here and take a hundred congregation worth of suffering when you ain't even dealt with the 5 and the 3 and the 10 and the 30 and the 20, and you ain't dealt with that. And so we can't skip those steps. But brothers start getting in their feelings a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Brothers like, man, come on, I ain't finna keep doing this, man. I ain't finna keep doing this. These brothers ain't doing it. Their brother ain't doing this right here. You know what I'm saying? And you can't have that spirit. You can't have that spirit, and that's a cardinal spirit. And it's not easy. It's not hard to fall in. That's not, you know what I'm saying? Most people gonna fall into that. Most people, you're gonna start feeling some kind of way. I ain't gonna say I wasn't feeling some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? It was just something that I eventually started getting numb to. But initially I was like, dang, you know what I'm saying? Like, brothers, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, come on, man, help out, man. You know what we need. But eventually you get numb to that, and you grow a bigger heart for loving your brother, for suffering for your brother. So then there's certain levels that you can get up to. You know what I'm saying? If you were suffering $30, $40 a week to your brother, or for the congregation, you know what I'm saying? Eventually, the Most High bless you with something else, or eventually you'll get in a better position. You can do more. You'll end up suffering more. You'll learn how to suffer more. You know what I'm saying? And you'll get all that back 100-fold if you believe the scriptures. If you believe the scriptures. So we can't. I did this video just for us to know that we can't stay at the Leviticus 19:17, even though there is suffering in there. There is a lot of suffering in there. We can't stay there. Let's end off with 1 John chapter 3 verse 11, and you can also look into John chapter 10. John chapter 10 verse 1 through 15. It talks about the good shepherd, and how the good shepherd would lay down his life for the flock. That's also another example, man. Make sure you know that, you understand that. But anytime you're talking about loving thy neighbor as thyself, you're talking about doing certain suffering, man, certain sacrifices that you making for each other, man. Not you just, man, I love you all. No, man. You love me, suffer for me. You love me, bleed for me, man. And see, that's how you know. That's how you separate the flock. That's how you look and see. How you see the difference. Like, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Brothers want to be compensated for everything, or you know what I'm saying? Brothers just step in and do certain things and be like, well, you know what I'm saying? Bleeding for your brothers, bleeding for the congregation. I can come in here, I can do that. Oh, come in there, you know what I'm saying? Let me sweep the floors, let me mop the floor. Bleeding, suffering for the congregation. That's love. That's love. And the greatest form of that is actually laying down your life. Laying down your life is the greatest form of that. That's the greatest love that can be here, that can be seen on this earth, is laying down your life. That's the greatest example. But let's end with the 1 John chapter 3 verse 11. 1 John chapter 3 verse 11. For this is the message that we heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. That's the message that we heard from the beginning. Love your neighbor as thyself. Love one another. Love your brethren. And this is also with the Most High, with Yahweh was saying when he was talking about, you're not. How can you love me and you don't even love your brother that's here on earth that you see? How can you then say you love Christ and you ain't never seen Christ? So, how can you suffer if you're not suffering for your brother here? If you're not suffering for your brother here, how then can you say that you're going to suffer for Yahweh's sake, that you're going to suffer for the kingdom? See, that's how you know who gonna go ahead and take the mark, who gonna go and head into that FEMA camp. That's how you know who's gonna give in, especially during these times, especially during these hardships that we're about to face, especially during Jacob's trouble. We understand who's going to do the first Maccabees 1:11, who's going to make the covenant with these heathens, because they haven't suffered for their brother. So they definitely wouldn't suffer for a family. They definitely wouldn't suffer for a nation. And they definitely wouldn't suffer for Christ, who they have not seen. But there's a message, 1 John 3:11, there's a message that we heard from the beginning, that you should love one another. With that, I'm going to say shalom.